On TV, pro wrestlers do quite a few things that would get them in pretty substantial legal trouble in real life. That's all entertainment, but a few have run into some genuinely serious trouble with the law, and they're still serving time for it. Tammy Sytch, who rose to fame as the original diva Sunny in the WWF in the mid-1990s, was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2011. But her life has spiraled into chaos since then. In 2012, Sytch was arrested 5 times in 4 weeks. She repeatedly violated protective orders following an altercation with her then-boyfriend, independent wrestler Damian Darling. After a 6th arrest in January 2013, she served 114 days in jail in Connecticut. In May 2015, she was arrested several times for drunk driving, including one incident where she drove into a ditch, blaming her GPS for the sudden turn. In January 2016, she was sentenced to 90 days in jail, but her time spent in rehab counted as time served. She would be in and out of jail for the next 6 years from repeated drunk driving offenses and related charges, including contempt of court, to eluding a police officer. She was also arrested for illegally possessing a weapon and making terroristic threats during an incident in which she allegedly threatened to kill a, quote, intimate partner while brandishing a pair of scissors. It all sadly culminated in March 2022. Sytch was involved in a fatal car crash in Florida in which a 75-year-old man was killed. According to a police report, Sytch rear-ended a car that was stopped at a light. Sytch was taken to a hospital where her blood was drawn. That May, she was arrested on DUI and manslaughter charges after it was determined she was 3.5 times over the legal blood alcohol limit during the crash. She was initially released on bond before a judge ruled her a danger to the community, and she returned to jail. Sytch pleaded no contest to the charges and was sentenced to 17 and a half years in prison. Her tentative release date is December 2039.
A precious life was lost that tragic day, and I am so incredibly sorry for that.
Fans knew Brian Michael McGee by a few different ring names, including Donovan Ruddick, D.T. Porter, and The Future, but they haven't seen him in quite a while because he's in prison for first-degree murder after the 2013 killing of his 25-year-old ex-girlfriend in Tampa, Florida. Ruddick, who was 29 and married at the time, was accused of stabbing Bianca McGahey multiple times at her apartment complex. The victim was talking on the phone with McGee's wife while walking her dog. According to the police, McGahey and McGee had broken up around a year earlier, but he continued to contact her. McGee had reportedly parked outside of the victim's home before approaching her, stabbing her, and fleeing the scene. He crashed into a guardrail after police chased him to an adjacent county.
Last night he crashed his vehicle and refused to get out of the car, so they deployed one of our canine.
In the trial, prosecutors revealed that McGee had admitted to the murder on Facebook, posting bloody photos of the victim on the social media site. Prosecutors also said McGee went to retrieve another knife from his car after the first one he used to stab McGahey broke. In July 2016, he was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Hardbody Harrison Norris was best known as a jobber in WCW in the late 1990s. He remained with the promotion until it was bought out by WWE in 2001. His contract was not renewed. He also appeared on the FX show Tough Man, which aired from 1999 to 2001, becoming heavyweight champion in 2000. In August 2005, Norris's home in Georgia was raided by FBI agents. He was arrested on 9 counts of false imprisonment and sex trafficking. According to the Department of Justice, Norris had been running a sex work business around the Atlanta area. He and a co-conspirator recruited and forced women, many of whom were poor, unhoused, or addicted to drugs, to do sex work. The DOJ contended that Harrison promised several victims he was starting an all-women's wrestling promotion and would train them to wrestle. The investigation also found that Norris forced victims to do physical labor, such as hauling trees and laying sod, at 2 homes. Charging documents said Norris kept the victims financially indebted to him and told them they couldn't leave until all their debts were paid. In April 2008, he was sentenced to life in prison. Norris was also required to pay a $2,400 special assessment. Former Mexican wrestler Juana Barraza Samperio was sentenced to a total of 759 years in prison after being convicted of murdering 16 elderly women in the early 1990s. Barraza was a luchadora known as La Dama del Silencio, or the Lady of Silence. Many characterized her, though, as a superfan who rarely got into the ring herself. She was reportedly more interested in the social life in Mexican lucha libre circles.
We were friends, sort of like party friends. We partied hard. We teased each other.
During her trial, Barraza, who became known as the Little Old Lady Killer, confessed to 3 additional murders. but authorities went on to estimate she was involved in the deaths of between 42 and 48 people in total. Barraza allegedly pretended to be a government nurse to get access to her victims, whom she would bludgeon or strangle before robbing them. She was caught in 2006 after fleeing a scene in which she had just strangled a victim with a stethoscope. Her case went to trial in 2008, and by the time it was closed, authorities still had 30 unsolved murders on their hands. The king of rock and roll, Buck Zumhofe, worked in WCCW and the AWA, holding multiple championships, including the AWA World Light Heavyweight Championship. He also appeared as a jobber in the WWF in the 1980s and 90s, where he was the first person to be put in a body bag by The Undertaker. He was also the first WWF wrestler to lose a televised match against a debuting Hunter Hearst Helmsley, later known as Triple H. Zumhofe faced legal trouble for the first time in 1986 when he was found guilty of sexual misconduct with a minor. He spent 36 months in prison after being convicted on the same charge in a separate case in January 1989. He was once again arrested in May 2013, charged this time with 12 felony counts of criminal sexual misconduct for abusing a relative between 1999 and 2011. The victim reported the abuse after seeking therapy and medical care in 2012 and also testified during the trial. Zumhofe reportedly ran from corrections officers and deputies after his trial. A complaint stated that after the guilty verdicts were read in court, Zumhofe's attorney asked to meet with him in a separate room. When Zumhofe was being led out into the hallway, he attempted to run but was subdued. In May 2014, he was sentenced to more than 25 years in prison.